Welcome back. This is the Daily Wealth Junkies Show. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a pretty unique guest with a pretty awesome story. But first, before we get started with that, be sure to subscribe to the show so that way you're not missing any of our daily episodes, and rate and comment so that we know how we're doing. Also, join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. And with that, Will, who's our guest today?
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Today we have John Soforic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. John, am I?
That's probably most likely the most common question I get, and you got it. You nailed it.
Awesome.
Will. Perfect.
Awesome. So today we have John Soforic. I pronounced his name right. He is the author of The Wealthy Gardener. It's an awesome book written about life lessons that he has gone through and learned. And it's similar to Richest Man in Babylon and also Think and Grow Rich. Those are two books that a lot of people likely know. So with that, John, can you give the listeners just a little bit more about your background and what got you to where you are today?
Sure. I basically, Will, I lived and worked in the middle class. I can relate to, the everyday man's journey to try to get to build wealth, to gain freedom. I would say that I started as a chiropractor. What that means is you start out in life with a whole lot of debt. By the age of 30, if all works out well, you're back to being dead broke. If maybe sometimes at 35, you're dead broke, and that's success in the medical profession or chiropractic. You're going to be like that. It's a struggle.
How much debt were you in?
Well, I started out with, I had $60,000 worth of debt back in 1990. All right, $1990.
Okay.
I got married, and that moved my debt up to $90,000.
And this is all in your early 20s, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. I was probably graduating around the age of 24. So life came to a sudden, serious, cliff.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, especially when you hang a shingle and don't have one patient, and
Right.
you start up and you have 90,000 of debt, and you have about 10,000 of overhead a month, and that's how life started. All of a sudden, life was pretty serious pretty quickly, and like I said, I got back to 30. I was lucky enough to pay down my debt and be broke again. That's how it all started.
Lucky enough, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the American dream, man.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit more about your 20s. We were talking before the show here, and it sounds like there's a lot that went on in your 20s that you could learn a lot from.
Oh, absolutely. Those were the struggling years. I think for all of us, I can tell you this, that life gets a lot better when you can put the crosshairs on a goal and you know what you want. I identify with a lot of the young 20s who are still searching, like we're asked to make a decision of what do you want to do with your life when you're 18. Well, at the age of 18, I'm now at the age of 54. I'm not going to ask an 18-year-old for career advice.
Right.
We're asked to do for ourselves at that age. And so it becomes a struggle. And it was for me. I know I originally read a book called Do What You Love, The Money Will Follow. I'm trying to figure out life. For me, that book was the equivalent of what people see today as far as the passion movement, follow your passion. And, I get it. Like I'm mid 50s, but I understand that young millennial who's searching. Like, I don't criticize that. That was me. I was on the crest of that wave. And it was a struggle. So in my 20s, to answer your question, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I wasn't sure I wasn't really competent at earning, saving, getting ahead. Those are the things you have to figure out in life. You have to become a competent adult and kind of understand what you want, and also understand the sacrifices of life. I was a young, popular guy through college. All of a sudden, I came out of college and life was real serious.
Yeah, nobody cares how popular you were in school.
You're zero, and you find out that the world really doesn't care about you all that much, that even you exist. You have to earn it now, all of a sudden, in your 20s. And so, yeah, it was a struggle, no doubt about it. I call the 20s a very hard decade for me.
So what techniques did you use, or how did you come out of debt and become broke again, or make it broke?
How'd you go from being
debt.
in the red to being at zero? How'd you get out of the debt that you were in?
Well, you're talking about some areas of my book where I will say I have revealed it all. Okay, and so if you're asking for a serious question for me, I'll answer it. I really believe that in my 20s, I learned a lot about self mastery, and what self mastery means to me is that you learn to control your mind, and that's just not positive thinking. That's setting a goal, that's affirming that goal, that's building your faith in that goal, and it's not letting go of that goal no matter what you see in your world, because what you see in your world a lot of times is a whole lot of struggle. Nothing in my world in my 20s looked like what I wanted in my mind. And the goal of this, goals don't work for people because they can't keep that mindset straight where they can keep supreme confidence when they see everything around them that doesn't look like the thing they imagine in their mind. That's the goal. You have to have that certainty no matter what. Just like if you see a sporting event where you're down 20 points in the end of a football game in the fourth quarter, if you think you lost, you lost. You're
Right.
done. You have to have that supreme attitude. And there's so much to that I cannot emphasize enough. It's not just talk. Like I've lived this. And so I'm not talking about positive thinking from some hypothetical point of view, like I read a book and here's what I think. This is what was necessary for me. Financial security for me was a power within. I promise you that. And when I felt the same certainty, like I would before an athletic event when I'd score 30 points playing basketball, when you would feel that certainty, that's when things start to show up in your life and things start to fall in place. And also, you start to follow through with the actions that earn those sorts of things. It's all about self-mastery. I cannot emphasize that enough in my own story. I built a belief in goals over my 20s. I built a belief that I would have wealth in my 20s. I needed financial freedom. I needed to be free. And I set my mind on it and I built my faith. That's what was necessary. And the actions, they're all secondary to that. We all have a different means and different ways to get there. The mindset, that's what's universal with most of us who do it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's that whole rich dad, poor dad thing where you got to think like the rich dad in the book, and and as opposed to the poor dad
There's
and
no other
the
way.
poor mindset.
There's no
Yeah,
other way, Will.
right.
If you want to get out of the middle class, like I respect the middle class. I love the middle class, but it's a hard life. And I wanted out of the middle class. I have to think differently than those in my community. And I
Right.
have to believe differently. Goals are one thing, but goals surrounded by faith. There's a power to faith. You can't just hope and wish and write things
Mhm.
down. You've got to build the belief. But that's when things start to happen. You'll find your
Yeah.
own power then.
Yeah. So give us an example of that. Somebody that's driving into work and working a 9 to 5 job where they're just trading time for money. To that person, you're talking to them right now. What would you say is a way that you changed your mindset to
What's a
think more like
technique?
a wealthy person?
Absolutely. What's a technique? Again,
Yeah.
bare my soul, right? I, I, uh, I myself, I can speak from my own story. I would use affirmations. People will talk about visualizations and affirmations, rehearsing those things, trying to see it in your mind. I would set a ritual where I would wake up in bed. I would come down, have a coffee before the family wakes up. I would review my goals. I would imagine my goals. There's 15 minutes that I belong to. That's nobody else's time. You
Mm.
set your mind at the beginning of a day, or you do not. And if you do not set your mind on your goals, you leave your wealth to chance. You can pinpoint what you want by setting your goals, writing visualizations, writing down affirmations like, I imagine myself to be financially free by my 50th birthday, for example, which I did. Those were the kind of affirmations that I wrote when I had nothing. I wasn't even broke yet, but you build your faith. And yeah, those are practical things you can do. Affirmations with faith. That's just not talk to me.
Right.
That's how I did that, guys.
So
That's awesome.
once you started changing your mindset, what did you notice was changing in your life, and how quickly did you notice the change?
That's a great question. It's a great question. Because people they expect you to start with goals, and life should just all of a sudden, boom, it should be different. No. The reason so few do it is because it takes such time to build that faith. You got to stick with it, man. If it's a month or a year, I would say that within the first year, I wasn't doing it in a way that was really. I would stay with it, but then I would drift away. I would stay with it. I would drift away. When I started seeing goals work, I can tell you this: I I went from a busy, a very empty clinic in Chicago to a clinic that had no room for more patients.
That's
No
awesome.
kidding.
I can tell you that in my life, and this story is outlined in my book, and I'm not promoting the book, I'm telling you where you can reveal some of my deepest secrets, where you can find them. It's I did nothing differently outside of visualizing those people calling me. You might call it the wealth of the law of attraction. We didn't have that term back then. All I know is whenever I started visualizing that clinic filling up and taking charge of my mind, I had people asking me, what the hell is going on? And I couldn't even admit to them what I'm doing. And I was just, it was the mindset, the attraction, there's a power to consciousness that I believe we don't all understand. And I can speak for myself. My testimony is that when I started having that commanding faith, my clinic filled up
That's
without doing
awesome.
one other thing, nothing. There's
Wow.
nothing tangible in this world outside of me thinking and focusing
Right.
and building faith.
No
That's
kidding.
really important.
That's so. Once you set that goal to be financially free at 50, what steps did you take other than the mindset?
Yeah.
And once you
What
figured
follows
out
the
the
mindset?
mindset, yeah, what follows the mindset?
That's a great question. Well, I appreciate how you're following the trail here, because that's exactly what it is. You have to build that mindset first, but then what you'll see is that you'll when your mind gets clear and you start to build the faith in your goal, you start to become inspired into actions. Like the actions that lead to that goal, they become more congruent with you, more natural. So what did I see? When I set that goal, and this clinic started filling up, I could see that I was still in Chicago and it was a very expensive area to live in. And it wasn't adding up mathematically for me. And
Hmm.
so you find a lot of people in their young 20s, like I was, and saying, well, listen, I'm working 7 days a week, 5 days a week, 10-hour days. What? I don't have time to make anymore. And there's no money at the end of the month. Well, I had that reality as well. Well, what do you do? I can tell you that what I did with that mindset that we talked about was I looked for other options of where to live. Okay. I sold my practice. It was a big move at the age of 27. I moved across the country 500 miles. I moved to a less expensive area, an area that had more trees and less cement
Hmm.
and a better cost of living. Now my margins were a lot better. So people say,
Mm,
well, I can't save money. Well, consider the house you're in and the cars you
right.
drive.
Absolutely. Yeah, the
You know,
lifestyle, definitely.
there are choices, folks. You just don't want to take them. I mean, I understand that. My wife and I sat down. We had to figure this out. Do we want to never have extra money? Does that mean we never want to take our kids on vacation? Do we always want to be worried about money in our free time? Or do we make a big decision and move? When we moved, and we moved back to Pennsylvania, Latrobe, PA, where I was from originally. That's where I set up my new practice. The margins were different. Guess who had excess money at the end of
Nice.
every week? So sometimes it's just about making the bold choices. Once you get that mindset, it did eventually lead me into real estate, which I think we're going to get into. It sounds like you guys have an interest there, but I can tell you the big move
Yeah, we
was.
like real estate a little bit.
Well, you're a smart man.
So yeah, no, that's really cool. And I talk to people and have in the past when I was in past life when I was really hot and heavy in the mortgage business. Um, I would go to open houses on the weekends and meet realtors, and that's really what kickstarted my business. And just first year made decent money, and I had people that were newer to the business, and even some people that had been doing it for a while, and they'd see the results and they'd want to get that, and they'd ask me how I'm doing it, and I'd show them, here's what you do. You go to this open house, you bring them cookies, and they didn't want to do that on the weekends. They're like, well, I can't give up, and that's
Yeah.
what you just talked about. You gotta, if you're not willing to make changes and maybe give up a few hours on the weekend, or move across the country to somewhere where it's cheaper like you did, then they're not going to see results. So you hit the nail on the head there.
You hit the nail on the head. It's I don't care if who you are. Uncommon rewards require uncommon sacrifices. I'm sorry, God made this world work this way. It's
That's
just
right.
how it works. And so if you can't, people want change, but they don't want it enough to sacrifice their comfort or their conveniences. You got to want it. And it comes back to mindset. If you get that mindset, you'll want that more. You'll accept that more.
That's where it all starts.
Absolutely, guys. And here's another thing. You always hear the excuse of people that have families. They say, well, I have a family, I can't do that. Well, you're just not communicating enough with your family. Your family will understand your drive.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing this so that I could protect and provide for my family. Okay?
Exactly.
You're just not communicating enough. Your family's for you. They want this to happen. You can understand sacrifices. And quite frankly, you're doing your kids a favor by showing them how to do that. In my opinion.
Love that.
So
that's so good.
So John, now that you're saving money and are you just keeping it in a bank account, hoping to maybe have
earning 0.01% on it?
Yeah. What are you doing with that new saved money?
Oh man, it's being the genius that I was. I've invested all of my money in the year 2000, right when the bubble burst. So
hopefully it wasn't into talk or tech stuff.
It was.
Shoot.
I think I hit the mountain peak. I went in with the best timing in the world. I probably the year 2000. Of course, everybody knows the .com bubble burst,
mm-hmm.
and I watched my money get cut into probably a third.
Ooh.
Wow.
I'm so unsavvy. I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. Like, where the dollars I put in here? Well, where are they? What do you mean it's a third? Shouldn't they be there, right? I mean, well, no, John, they're gone. You gave it to companies spread over a bunch of different funds, and they're spent now. It's not dollars anymore.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to figure out, this is just demoralizing. And so I went down and I lost a lot of money. And that, however, getting to your point, led to a pivot. And I realized that I would prefer work over worry. And what I mean by that is, yes, real estate is work. It's not passive. It's not like watching a stock go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to worry. And I would prefer the work of real estate over the worry of the stock market. It's just how I'm built. And I understand the argument against that. The stocks do so well and everything. I'm built for real estate. It worked for me. And for a lot of us in the middle class, it is the way to build a passive income like I was after. Like that was my goal. So I pivoted and I went into, like you said, I went into a rental. My hands shook. After my big folly in the stock market, I bought one rental. It was we cleaned it up for maybe $15,000. We would buy the types that would be the add-on costs. We would increase their value. And again, being an idiot, I ran into the first drug dealer. I didn't know they were a drug dealer. I lost $4,000 in one year, and that was the start of my real estate success right there.
Wow, most people would throw in the towel.
Well, you know what? To that point, okay, is that failure or is that a setback? And this is talking about a passion and idea for me. I hate when people say failure. What are you talking about, failure? You're still breathing, right?
Yeah.
Are you still breathing or are you dead? To me, that was that's a setback. I didn't like it. That's for damn sure. But that was a setback. Don't talk to me about failure. Failure is when you die. You still have breath in you. Shut up and get that, recover. I still had money. I still had a life. I had my dreams and ambition. Suck it up and take it on the chin and move on. That was my take on that one. And I built them slowly over. I know this is a long monologue, but to answer your question, it's a long story. I built up 20 rentals of my own, before I even told anybody around me that I was in it.
Wow.
I kept it a secret. I wasn't looking for other people's negative opinions. I built them.
There's lots of negative opinions out there about it,
Guard your mind. It
Yeah.
makes people uncomfortable when you're getting ahead. Absolutely. I
Right.
didn't tell anybody. I was under the radar.
So how are you financing these? How are you buying these and paying for them?
You know what? That's a great question. Back then, I always get the question asked. Like people say, well, how do I get into real estate? How do I do this? We'll say, well, show me how much money do you have saved yet? Right? Well, nothing. Well, I can't answer your question, and I can answer the question for me for how I did it. Okay, I had probably about $50,000 at the time. I invested into one. It was a foreclosure. I put all my money into it with fix-ups. I went to the bank and I got a refinance loan. So
Once it was all fixed up and the bank was willing to lend on it.
Absolutely. You come back, you get a refinance loan. They'll give you $45,000 back. So I put 50 in, they give me 45 back. So what I really did was put 5,000 into that thing, right?
Yeah.
The cash flows maybe $200 a month, paying off that loan, and all of a sudden you started, for the first time in my life, I got a check that I didn't earn. Money came to me that I didn't work for. I cannot tell you what that
It's a beautiful thing, right?
For me. And let me tell you one other story. I'm sorry if I'm dominating this. This is a good story, but people don't understand this. One time, one of my third ones in this real estate venture, we did this. You don't know what you're doing when you're starting. Except that I bought this one. The cost went up to $70,000. The house, it was a total disaster. Everything went wrong. I fired 3 teams of contractors. Everything that can happen bad happened bad. And at the end of 6 months, I sold the damn thing just to get out of it, and I made $200. Right now, people say, "Oh, what a failure! What a disaster!" I said, "Wait a minute. I'll tell you what happened. You know what I saw? When I did everything wrong in the stock market in 2000, I lost 2/3 of my money. When I did everything wrong in this house, I got my money back plus 200.
Yeah, I was saying you made $200.
I suffered nothing, and I learned a lot. That's the value of real estate if you buy right.
I totally agree with that. You said it best. As long as you buy right, you can suffer setbacks like that and usually end up ahead, or at least at breaking even.
Break even or minimal losses. I mean, I've had losses, but they're minimum. They're nothing like the stock market losses, right?
That's right.
I've tried to explain that to contractors, like you make your money when you buy. I'm done. If anybody's out there listening that has contractors, don't explain it to them. They don't understand. They think that it's their screw into a stud, and that's what's making your money. Just let them think that. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Absolutely.
So how many rentals did you end up with, at your peak?
Well, I'm at my peak now. So I have 105 right now.
Wow.
Just individual single family rentals?
I started single family, Brandon. Because I wanted to exit. I wanted to, going back to the first one, it was a single family. My reasoning for it was, what if I don't like this? What if this is a disaster? What if I don't want to do this? Well, it's really easy to sell a single family. It gets harder to sell a duplex. It gets harder to sell a fourplex because you're getting more and more specialized. Yes, I do have a 30 unit now. I have a 10 unit now.
Oh, nice.
But I really do believe in the bread and butter duplexes, at least in my area. And the reason for them, there's a lot of those things on the market. You're dealing with sellers who may not be as cutthroat as the apartment buyers. There's a lot of mom and pop duplexes in this world, and they're getting older and they just want to sell the things. That's a real bread and butter money maker in my area.
Yeah, and those you're right. Those people usually aren't as sophisticated as the ones that are buying the larger commercial stuff.
They're in my area. I can speak that a lot of times they have the houses that might have the rents way below because they've been renting to 20 years for a friend. They're just old folks that are just good people, and they're old enough. They don't need the hassles of rental real estate anymore. They're looking to get rid of it. So there's a lot more of that in my area, but. I'm not, when you set your criteria down, like I'm sure you guys know criteria, you're looking how much you'll pay per unit, those sorts of things.
Right.
doesn't really matter. You can use that criteria across a 10 unit or a duplex or a 1 unit, and just look for the deal you're trying to make, the return. To me, it was all cash on cash return. That was the metric that really mattered.
Yeah, you can't spend appreciation or net worth. You can only spend cash flow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if
So
you're talking about it, you're comparing apples to apples. It's what you make on your money elsewhere. That's how you better evaluate this investment as well. What do you make on your money? Cash on cash return. And so that was critical. Always coming back to this. My business was called Evergreen Houses. People think that's a nice little, cute little evergreen bushes type of house. No, Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, said the key to business, quote, is to always think evergreen, always think cash flow. And so I put that name on there to remind myself, always think cash flow.
Yep.
Don't get sucked up into beautiful places. Don't get sucked up into the sexy stuff. Always think cash flow.
yeah, that's good.
Fall in love with
Yeah.
the property, fall in love with the deal. So drum that in your head forever, to keep yourself sane.
Evergreen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fairly recently, you mentioned earlier that you became financially free. What, in your eyes, what does that mean, and what does that get you, being financially free?
Well, that's a big question, and I think that's something to decide upon when you're in your 20s. You said, what does a person do in their 20s? I think you decide what you want and why you want it. I don't think if you decide what you want without really knowing why you want it, I don't think you're going to follow through. Your why is your follow through. It's the cause of your persistence. For me, I can only speak and say that I desperately just wanted freedom. I wanted a life that I didn't feel like my days were mastered by chasing the dollar. I understand that's normal, but it wasn't okay for me. I wanted more, where I could wake up and say, I choose my purpose. I choose the content of my hours today. So what does it mean for me? I wanted $220,000. I picked this number out of the blue at the age of 30. All right, $220,000 net worth. I'm talking taxable, not gross. For me, that was enough to have a business, to live on the principle of the profits, and to have enough profits to build a business from the business. So it keeps on growing and rolling.
Mm-hmm.
This was my vision, and this is what I put
So
in my head.
The 220, that would be your yearly, just the income from the properties, right?
Net.
Okay, got it.
Not gross, right?
Yep.
So you're looking at, not gross.
So passive income of $220,000 a year.
You know what? Yes.
Yep.
I can
That's
tell
awesome.
you, I have a check. I still have it to this day. I wrote it out in a fictitious check where I just put my mind on it. This was my imaginary check. Yeah, I did all those crazy things.
I love that. That's the Jim Carrey did that, I believe.
Let me tell you what. I'll describe this to a T in my book. There was a day of when my 50th came. Okay, it was before it, like my 49th birthday. We finished up, and what happens is life gets so busy. You got your goals, but things are flying around you so fast that it's a chaotic whirlwind, and you're not always clear on exactly what you're making, because for me, I was a chiropractor, I was flipping business, I had rental business, and it's coming in from all kind of streams, and you're trying to figure it out.
Right.
We went through the process. The accountant gave me a number, and at 49, and I think I was like 9 months into it, I sat down and I missed that number by hundreds. Okay. I missed it. I think I was like 219, 800 that year.
Wow.
Net. But the statistical odds are just, you'd probably have a better odds of getting struck by lightning than to nail on that one number in the middle of it. And so, yeah, there's some magic to all of that. I absolutely. Getting back to your why, freedom, providing for a family, protecting my family, freedom for me. Absolutely. Those are my
having
whys.
the time to do really whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want.
I would Tony Robbins, right?
Yeah.
But I would say this, that if so whatever gets your pot boiling, you'll find that after it's all over, sitting on the beach isn't what you want. You're gonna, people want fulfillment, they want meaning. I mean, I admire you guys at your age, because you're entering an area that could really provide fulfillment. I mean, you're in an area where you could help a lot of people. It's a creative endeavor. Those are the kind of things where you work at the edge of your capacity. You could really find a lot of fulfillment where you are right now. I had to set a goal so that I could find greater fulfillments in my life as well. And those are the things that make my life a little more meaningful. Uh, so
That's
that's what do I do now? Yeah, it became the book, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, once I got to 50.
that's awesome.
So now that you've got your financial freedom, it sounds like you've got time. You started writing a book. You finished writing a book. What other things along with the book does this freedom give you to do?
Well, let me say this. Let me back up, because people will always say that you haven't made now, financial freedom. When I achieved my financial freedom, my only brother, within a month, I'm like looking at my numbers here, and I think that, okay, I think I finally arrived. My only brother, who was 52 at the time, died. He got in a car wreck.
Oh man.
He got run over by a car in a parking lot. It was
Wow.
pretty gruesome. And so life got, again, became serious. And so, I started wondering what I was going to do with the rest of my time. Now I have a lot of freedom in my life. How will I use that? So about that time, my son was in college, and I was thinking I could write a book of life lessons, and maybe I could leave that behind in my remaining time on this earth. And so it became a meaningful pursuit for me, a way for me to use my freedom. And I could say this to answer your question: I could not have written this book without that financial freedom. First, I
Wow.
did it, so I could actually speak from experience. And number two, I don't know, maybe I'm just a dumb writer, but it took me 3 years to finish this book, writing full time. Whereas most people write
Wow.
in the margins of a work week, it wasn't like that for me. So that was a pursuit. And what this pursuit has led into, then, it was first just between me and my son. Then we put it on Amazon. It actually went to number 46 worldwide last week. It was kind of crazy. I think that run is
That
over.
is wild.
It caught the attention of China. Some publisher in China and South Korea, they're publishing it. And finally now, Penguin Random House in America, they've purchased it and given me an advance, and now we're collaborating on a lot of things. So they take up a lot of my time, in addition to my current real estate business. I have 100 and
That's
some.
awesome. And that's what financial freedom allowed you to do, in essence.
Financial freedom allows you to focus on things that are more important than money. All right. I think we
Yeah.
would all like to not have to think about money all our lives. Ironically, I needed to become less materialistic to have financial freedom.
Mhm.
And that's a point lost on most people. They think that it might be a greedy pursuit. It's not. You have to sacrifice. It's a lot of
Yeah.
self-mastery, living below your means so that you can get to a better life. And it's allowed me to write a book that's really well. Why are you guys contacting me? It allows me to contact
Exactly.
you guys.
Right.
If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here. And so I appreciate you reaching out for me.
I
That's
love that.
awesome. So what's in the store for the future for you now? I mean, are you going to write any more
Yeah,
books?
with
Get to
Penguin, what do you can you give
200
us a
more?
sneak peek?
You know what, guys? I don't know. And that's another thing. Sometimes you figure out your life as it goes, right? I really believe that you get a new life every 5 years. If you think back over the last 5 years, what your focus was, what was in your life then, you'll come to realize how everything changes every 5 years in your life.
Definitely.
Um, I don't see. It's almost like I don't see past this year right now, and that's okay, because I'm immersed in what I'm doing right now. I can say that writing a book nearly kills me. I mean, I'm just not a healthy writer of books.
Right.
I've seen Robert Greene, right? He writes Mastery and those kind of. He wrote some fantastic books, but the guy had a stroke writing his third or fourth book. Well, that's
Oof.
me. And so, okay, maybe I do have a blog. I'm considering doing a 1-minute message every day for those that are finding my email list. Like there's a natural organic growth of things like this.
Yeah.
But I didn't get into this to be a famous author. I kind of like the idea of grabbing a kayak and going to Canada.
Nice.
I haven't figured that out, to be honest with you, what the future holds. I'm
Well,
figure this
it's a
out as
good
I
problem to
go.
have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I do like to have the options. It's another thing that financial freedom gives you is
Yep.
options. Absolutely. So.
Well,
That's
we're
cool.
excited to see where the future takes you. So, we'll keep everybody updated with how that
Yeah.
goes.
Maybe we can have a follow-up.
So
It'll be a whole different game next year. So I would love
yeah,
to
absolutely.
see what happens.
So, well, John, we're going to transition into our moments of truth section here. It's where we ask the same 7 questions to all our guests, and I'm going to kick it off with the first one. Who is your success role model?
I didn't grow up with a success role model. No, I can tell you that my dad, he was born into what you would probably call poverty, and he ended up being pretty well off. But we didn't have the relationship where I would sit down and speak about a lot of lessons like that. The role model that I found that I'm just most congruent with is Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill, for those who don't know, is the author of Think and Grow Rich. He was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to write a book on success. And what's unique about him, what caught him from me, my interest was, he spent about 20 years in the rural world interviewing people and living before he wrote that book. And because he did that, that book was so different. I fear where I would be in my life if not for Think and Grow Rich. It impacted me
Wow.
that way. And so my goal was, I kind of related to him in that I myself lived 3 decades in the world before I felt competent enough to write my own book.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was important. I relate to that, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't hope for a book that was similar to Think and Grow Rich. So I like the life that he set as an example. Maybe you call that a role model.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
Cool. What's your biggest success?
Guys, I get back to it, but it's just what we're talking about. If you're talking, financial freedom for a guy that starts out and works in the middle class, I'm not Elon Musk with, $1 billion here. If you try to figure out from the start how a guy earning basically an average income ends up financially free, multimillionaire at the age of 50 on my income, it's not possible. All right. It's not possible if you map it out with a pen and paper. And that's what's real important. I required a lot of lucky breaks along the way. And I believe that through self-mastery and through focusing your mind, those breaks can come your way, as well as the inspiration and the work required to do it. I would say financial freedom was without a doubt, by 50, the most challenging goal of my life. And I missed every goal along the way. All right, that's another point. I hit that goal, but you've got to be okay with missing your short-term goals while you get to your long-term goal.
Mm.
There's nothing that comes close to that achievement for me.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
kind of miss on the line of missing goals is you set the goals, and even if you fail, you've probably gone a lot further than you would have if you didn't even set those goals. So that's it's like you said, it's okay to miss them, but
Feedback, brother. It's
yeah,
not failure. It's feedback. If you quit, it's failure.
yeah,
Feedback, and you can always improve next year. And you're going forward. Absolutely, it's progress, and you've got to be mentally tough enough to accept the fact that you don't win every game. I'm sorry, that's the way the world works, but you got to still step up to that plate and swing again. That's
absolutely.
really important.
So now that you are financially free, what does a typical day for you look like?
That's now you're speaking my language, because I believe that's what life is. It's your ability to choose the content of your life, right? When I wake up, I have 6 to 9 is my own. This is when I'll write. This is when I'm working with some of the revisions on Penguin with the book. This is when I might do some of the blog. At 9 o'clock, my wife and I come together. We have something called tea time. We sit in the backyard by our garden. We'll read something spiritual. We'll talk about that, and then we'll go exercise. So 9 to 12 is separated from me. We'll usually go to the gym, or go running, or do those sorts of things. My wife and I have 9 to 12 blocked off. 12 to 6 is whatever work I damn well want to do that day. And what people call work, I call it being just engaging my hours, right? I'm not digging a ditch, I'm not in the coal mine like my grandfather was.
Mm-hmm.
It's real important to realize we're just talking about engaging ourselves. So that's from 6 to 12. I have dinner, and I like to read at nighttime if possible. I think the evenings, a lot of times the hours we can give to our curiosities and interests, and a lot of people just throw those things into a wastebasket. It's time to eat, and just throw those hours away.
Watch TV. Yeah.
Those are crucial, vital hours. Absolutely. They're
Agreed.
the 3 hours of life, man. Use them, give them some enrichment. So I'll be found reading. Obviously, you contact me at 7 o'clock at night. You'll see me reading.
Cool. Love it. What's your favorite quote?
Do you see behind me? Do you see all over the walls?
Yeah.
I see them. I can't read them.
Those are quotes.
Wow.
Okay, nice.
You say, well, what were your life lessons through the years, right? Well, listen, I joke with people and say, I'm so dumb, I couldn't remember any quotes, so I hung them all over my room.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there were times I'll walk around here and I'll read each one of them one by one because I'm just demoralized. It happens. They'll pick you up. What is a quote? It's an idea, but there's no quote in my mind greater. Are you guys familiar with The Man in the Arena, Teddy Roosevelt?
I'm familiar with it, but not too familiar with it. Yeah.
I can say this, that there's no quote that I've relied upon more in my life when you get punched in the face than Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena. It's basically goes to the credit belongs to the man in the arena, not to the person in the stands. It's the person, the doer of deeds, not the one that criticizes. The one whose face is marred by dust and sweat and dirt, who strives valiantly, and who, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. I would say, look that quote up.
That's really good.
It's been hanging on my wall for decades, and I cannot tell you how many times I've read that just to not give in to despair in those moments, So
yeah,
The Man in the Arena.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of your hobbies?
Okay, getting back to the point of sacrifice. So I do have room for hobbies and things now, right? But I can say this, getting back to the sacrifice years, to get a better life, I did have to sacrifice a lot of my hobbies, all right? I never stopped reading. I consider reading a hobby, but I consider reading an enrichment. I have a need to learn. I'm not fulfilled without some sort of learning on a weekly basis. I do triathlons.
Nice.
People would say that's more torture than hobby.
Yeah.
But,
Most likely, yeah.
I can't disagree, but for some reason I feel compelled to do that. I stick to a 3-hour. There's different ones that you can do. Olympic level is about a 3-hour if you're good, 3.5 hours if you're me. So
wow,
I still do those.
That's awesome.
I would say hot, and that fills up the day between reading, exercise, and your work. I'm happy with that.
Awesome. What's the best business book that you've read?
Well, you guys already know. I
was going to say, I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I cannot not give the nod to Think and Grow Rich. It's a book from a different era that people will say, well, it's outdated. And, I'm gratified that a lot of people will say that, my book is the modern day Think and Grow Rich. Like if you look at reviews, I hear that over and over, and you can pay me no other greater compliment than that. That's my God. That's my Bible,
That's huge.
So, yeah. I wouldn't be, like I said, I fear where I'd be without the contribution of Napoleon Hill to give me some guidance.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you know when one of our guests mentions your book is their best business book. So even though it's not a business book, but it
kind of is.
Yeah. Along the lines. So, but last question here, if there's one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
Well, you guys probably could guess this one as well. I would say that you're nothing without controlling your mind. People will poo-poo that, especially in this day and age. I'm not sure why there's so much jaded criticism and skepticism towards the idea of controlling your thoughts. And maybe there's some wackos out there that haven't described it succinctly, but without controlling your thoughts, you're not in control of anything. You really have to set rituals to try to do that. If it's meditation in the morning to make you more mindful during the day, without controlling your thoughts, you're just you're just a ship without a rudder. You really are. So that has to be the starting place. Know what you want and why you want it.
That's great.
That's awesome. So, John, how can our listeners get in contact with you? How can they purchase one of your books? And
Yeah, what's the name of it again, and where can they find it?
It's The Wealthy Gardener. It's going to be put out this spring through Penguin Random House again. It's currently on Amazon or any bookstore.
Cool.
You can find. It's out there. It's competing well with current books. My website is wealthygardener.com. And
awesome. Everybody go get a copy. Go on Amazon. Get it delivered tomorrow to you.
There you go.
With Prime.
Plug me, man. Plug. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, some places you could probably get it same day. Who knows? Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty wild.
I never realized. Well, it's print on demand through Amazon, right? So if you
well, there you go.
I didn't know. So if you order a book on Amazon, it gets printed today and sent tomorroore. It doesn't.
No kidding.
There is no inventory.
That's
It's
awesome.
amazing.
That is amazing.
Wow. I've noticed that I've ordered some and there's a print date on there the day I ordered it. I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder how.
Possible.
Yeah.
They always say, well, hey, can you send me one of those books from your garage? No, you guys are awesome. It's amazing.
Right.
Thank you, Jeff Bezos.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, well, John, we appreciate you being on the show today. You provide a lot of insight and on the mindset and how important that is. So we do appreciate you sharing that with us. And for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you're not missing any of these awesome daily episodes that we're putting out to you, and rate and comment so that we know how we're doing and so our guests know how they're doing. And join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth-junkies. Again, John, we really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you, John.
Honored to be here, guys. Thanks you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
See
everyone tomorrow.
See you.